By the way, who do you guys got tomorrow night? Judge or Raleigh? Not
I
your
think,
pick, but who's going to
I
win?
think Judge will
I
win.
think
I think
Judge
it's like
wins.
I'm with
60
you.
40, 60
I think he
40.
wins kind of easily.
I
Really?
said
Not in
I
a blowout, but like maybe two-thirds.
I
I haven't asked
I
anyone. I would actually I mean, I didn't study it. I probably would vote for Raleigh because I just think catching it's just so hard and it's so valuable to have that catcher. But I mean, it's to me, it's basically a coin flip in my mind. I think the general consensus kind of leans toward Judge. I think, and I don't
Yeah,
blame it for
that's the
voting.
feeling I get. I was on Judge, and I think the numbers just mathematically are overwhelmingly in his favor. But then when I was covering the Mariners in the postseason and watching Raleigh every day and how much he means to that team, I mean, that guy is more than just a good catcher. He runs the game from behind the plate and he switch hits, 60 home runs. It's crazy.
It's
and it's
very
never been
valuable.
tougher to do that job.
Good
That
point.
Right.
job,
You're right.
like
He's got a tough
physically,
staff. Yeah.
yeah, to catch velocity, spin, to have an individual game plan for every hitter for each plate appearance mentally. And he led the American League in innings catching. It wasn't like, oh my goodness, he's just kind of like a part-time catcher.
Right.
I think there's a great. It's interesting. There was a bunch of us at dinner last night playing under over in a casino. How many votes Raleigh got? And I set it at 11 and a half for
Yeah,
go under
yeah.
or
I
over.
think you're about right. Yeah.
Yeah, I
And I
think
took
it's
because I took
underrated.
12. I think he's going to get 12 first place
It's
votes.
underrated how valuable it is to have a catcher who hits. I think the four best hitting catchers were the final four teams. Now that may just be coincidental, but if you
You're
look at
right.
Buster Posey's career, I mean Mike Piazza, if he could catch it all or throw it all, they won a lot of games. He didn't end up winning the World Series, but I think it's very,
Nada.
very valuable because a lot of teams have catchers who are not, like I mean the Cleveland guys, an example, big, scream example, but they have
Right.
catch the average OPS plus is like it was like 90 this year thanks to Raleigh, but normally it's below 90. So
Yeah.
you got a catcher with a 150 or 160. I think it's a huge deal.
Our friend Tom Verducci is joining us, John, to discuss probably the end of the season, which was great, the World Series, and where we are now in the hot stove.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing from Tom. Very eloquent spokesman. You see him on TV all the time on MLB Network, on Fox, and I've worked with him in three places. He's been a better writer than me in all three places, and he's terrific commenting on baseball. He knows the ins and outs, and I think it's the first time we've actually had Tom on, so really looking forward to this.
Yeah, Tom's wrap up of the World Series every year in Sports Illustrated is one of the highlights of writing, sports writing, baseball writing every year. Everyone should give that a read, and we'll talk to him about that and more. John and I are going to trigger the hot stove. A lot's on the Mets and Yankees. We'll play hit and error at the end if you stick with us on the show with Joel Sherman and Jon Heyman. John, we're both in Vegas. We're both in our hotel room. The final day of the general managers meetings is today, Wednesday. Very little action so far. We're getting the sparring. I'm getting a feeling that there's a lot of teams that would actually like to spend some money this off season and go for it a little more than maybe traditional beyond the, Yankees, Mets, Dodgers, etc. We're hearing about lots and lots of teams, Toronto, Seattle, Boston, even Pittsburgh, Miami a little bit, etc. Obviously, the New York teams are going to be active. Why don't we start with the Mets just because David Stearns is actually here and did speak on Tuesday to a group of reporters. Um, I thought am I strange to think that the most interesting thing he said in that period, John, was that center field, Carson Benge is going to come into spring training with a chance to make the team. The Mets do not have an obvious center fielder. David Stearns loves Tyrone Taylor and mentioned him again for the center field job. I mean, if Tyrone Taylor is anything more than your fourth or fifth outfielder and you're the Mets with a $300 million payroll going into the season, I think you've probably failed again to address the situation. Do you think that Carson Benge is the Bubba Crosby of this offseason and you say it so that you don't seem desperate, that you need to figure out a center fielder between now and the beginning of the regular season? Or do you think this is David Stearns? He's going to open up jobs for young players and give it a go.
Yeah, I'm not going to say he's the Crosby. Was it Bubba Crosby? Was that the guy's name? Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
I
not
mean,
going to
this
say
guy's a
that.
legit top
Yeah,
prospect.
he's going to be a great player at some point. I mean, obviously, right, he's a top prospect. But I can't see how they don't get a center fielder, right? At this point, Benj hasn't had a lot of reps in the minor leagues, so I think that would be a little bit shocking if they didn't go out and get some kind of a center fielder who could at least tide them over until Benj is ready. I think they're talking to Bellinger. They will be talking to Bellinger anyway, and that's a guy who really fits the team. This is not a small market team. This is a big, not only big market, but a big spending team. I'm sure Steve Cohen isn't happy the way last year's team performed. It was a disaster. I know, when you win more than you lose, it's still a disaster if you have a $340 million payroll with the expectations that they had. I think that'll be a major disappointment if they don't come in with a center fielder. They got a lot of work to do. I mean, they really do. It's not just run prevention, it's everything. Two out of their best four players are now free agents, right? Diaz and Alonso. And he talked about how they'd like to have them back, but the reality is they don't have them back now. And they don't have a right-handed power threat who's going to start for the team. And they don't have a closer. And they don't really have much of a bullpen. And they don't have a center fielder. They got a lot of work to do. Fortunately, I think David Stearns knows what he's doing. Obviously, 1 out of 2 years has been great so far with the Mets. So obviously, it hasn't been perfect. Steve Cohen willing to spend. I'm not buying that Carson Bench is going to go in as someone with a great chance to win the starting job in center field.
John, you kind of took me a place I wanted to talk to you about, which is uh, last year at this time, the Mets not only were coming off of making it to Game 6 of the NLCS, and really having this kind of great grimace, OMG, good vibe, good for success on the field. They felt like they were very much set up for the near future, especially they then go and spend 765 million on Soto at the winter meetings. It felt like they were heading to a good place. I don't think they're necessarily heading to a bad place, but at best, they're in a similar situation. Can you say you're in a similar situation with a better farm system in Soto, and some of these young pitchers breaking through? I get it. That's what David Stearns proposed yesterday. But John, I hear what you say, and I feel it also, which is you're coming off of a bad year where you're looking around and now you start worrying about the age of Nimmo and Lindor. You worry about the defensive flexibility once Soto's always in right field. And all these places John, I think you glanced on it. It's not just, yes, they've got to rebuild an entire bullpen. I mean, they've got to bring in like 5 or 6 new arms to this. They don't have a right-hand reliever they like on the roster right now.
Right,
I don't
right.
hear about Alaska Brazaban. They've got a lot of work to do for a team that 12 months ago we felt really good about. Do you feel worse about the team today?
Well, certainly he felt great about the team a year ago. And they went to the LCS. They played decently against the Dodgers. They won more games against the Dodgers than the Yankees did in their series. They had rallied. It looked like Vientos was going to be at least a hitting star. He clearly took a step back for whatever reason last year. Yeah, I bet there are two good things that they have going for him. They have Steve Cohen's willingness to spend and the fact that he has a big payroll. That's what I'm going to count that as one thing. And the other thing is they do have great prospects, right? They are ranked high. For whatever that means, the rankings don't always come to fruition, but they've got 5 guys who are really, top 100 prospects, or maybe even more than that. McLean looked great. I think Tong has potential, maybe needs to get a breaking ball. Certainly an important thing. Sproat looked good. So I mean, there are some positives, but I'm pointing out some positives now. It's kind of just to counter a little bit, and I believe there are these positives, but in the short term, it does not look great, right? I mean, we're missing whole positions. We're missing basically a whole bullpen. So I think they look better in the long term than the short term.
And John, I've got to say, one of the things that makes me feel suspicious, leery, is I think we both have high regard for David Stearns, but essentially he's now 1 for 2 in off seasons, and he has a lot to do here. And as much, and I of course agree with you that having Steve Cohen's wallet has great benefits, but he isn't going to solve everything on the Juan Soto level. He's going to have to get the secondary stuff right that he didn't get right last year. He's going to have to prove that, outside of the Brewer Foundation, the structure which he helped create, but
Right.
maybe there were support staff there that were really important in what they did. He's going to have to prove that he's kind of the wizard who can bring this and make it work on a pretty annual basis. John, before we flip to Yankees, let's deal with the one last thing with the Mets because it's kind of the most important thing with the Mets this offseason, and you've mentioned it a bunch of times. You said they were two of the four best players on the team, and that's Alonso and Diaz. And where you think we're headed right now. John, if I had to make a case, I actually think they need Diaz more than Alonso, and that's no rip on Pete Alonso, who is second in RBIs in the majors, fifth in extra base hits, eighth in homers. He is in a time where it's hard to hit a ball. He is just below the best home run hitters in the sport, which is to say he's a top five homer hitter, for consistency. He could hit, he could hit, he could hit. But I just don't know how the Mets function if they don't kind of throw the anchor of their bullpen back in and build around it when they have to do so much else.
Yeah, you can't argue with that. I mean, Diaz was the best reliever, certainly in the National League. He's going to win we're right here in Las Vegas. They're going to have an awards for the top relievers. He's clearly going to win the award for the top reliever in the National League. There's really no negative to a great closer. So obviously, I can't really argue with that. But I am wondering what they're going to do if Alonso is not retained. He did hit 38 home runs. He did have 126 RBIs. He is right-handed, right? They're better hitters. The other better hitters right now, the only great hitters are left-handed on this team, right? Who are starters, right? We've got Soto, we have Nimmo, and of course Lindor, better left-handed, and it's more often left-handed than right-handed. Obviously Alvarez has got potential. Vientos, I think he can regain something and get back out there and do something important, but to come in with Vientos and Alvarez as your right-handed threats and that's it, can't do that. I'm just not sure where do they go to replace Alonso. I'm looking at that first base list. You got some lefty bats, you've got some aging righty bats. You don't really have anybody who can replace Alonso. Do they do it in multiple other areas and figure it out? I don't know, but I mean, yeah, I can't argue that Diaz is a bigger need at this moment than Alonso.
Yeah, so flip over because you mentioned the biggest name. Br- just for so the listeners, viewers know, Brian Cashman is not at these winter meetings. He said to have a personal issue that he is addressing. I believe he's going to talk to reporters via maybe a Zoom today, but like no Yankee official has talked. Obviously, John and I still on background talk to Yankee officials, get a flavor of what's going on. And you mentioned the big thing. Their winter falls into place if they could re-sign Bellinger. Like it feels it's not perfect. They still have a lot to do. But if they re-sign Bellinger, they could line up a team for next year. And so then they're just building around what was a pretty strong team, a 94 win team. I think, I don't know if you agree with me, it feels like if we played the American League playoffs 100 times, the Yankees would go to the World Series 15 or so times of that. 20, like they were good. There was a real toss up in the American League at the top. So they have a good core that stays that way if they could keep Bellinger. I sense they're not on Tucker. Will they talk? Yeah, the Yankees talk to everyone. I don't think Hal Steinbrenner's in the $400 million business again. I think he wants to drive this payroll under $300 million. John, take that wherever you want. I think Bellinger is so kind of 1A, 1B, 1C for them to get done to then kind of be like, okay, how much money do we have left? What else do we want to address next?
Yeah, first on Tucker. To me, it makes no sense. Now, of course, in free agency, you never know what's going to happen. I don't see how Tucker is really a fit. They already have the best right fielder in the game. Certainly, you could put Tucker at left field or figure it out, something like that. Maybe he can even play center, but I don't see him adding that kind of money to the payroll, particularly when and I'm with you. You said last week you mentioned a starting pitcher. It would be nice for them to get a starting pitcher. I've heard they liked Imai. That would be a big expense, but I think that would be, I wouldn't say luxury. I think they could use a good starting pitcher. And beyond that, what's their bullpen? Their bullpen was not very good last year overall, and they're losing Weaver and Williams. Now, obviously, they had some bad moments too, but these are talented pitchers. Williams was great in the past for the Brewers. He looked better at the end for the Yankees. Weaver had some good moments last year, was really good the year before. These are two losses. Maybe people will say, well, they weren't great last year, and that's fair. But the bullpen wasn't great either. And they definitely need to augment the bullpen. They need to, I believe, and I'm with you on this, you've come to convince me on this, they do need a starter as well. Those are bigger needs than Tucker. Let's see what Spencer Jones can be. Can Dominguez be better? Can he play center field? Maybe. I don't think Bellinger is as imperative as Diaz is for the Mets, or even Alonso is for the Mets. Maybe Spencer Jones can do it. Maybe he can. He's got great speed. He's got power. Obviously, was a little bit up and down last year. Had a great few weeks and then slumped after that. But I'm not going to say, and I think it's dangerous. You say we have to get this guy. I'm not going to say that. I think he's a good fit for them. I think he's an even better fit for the Mets. But I think there probably are alternatives there for the Yankees. The pitching is where I would go for the Yankees. If they don't get Bellinger, they already had the best offense in baseball. You can live with the third best offense in baseball. The pitching needs to be better.
So, John, I on the pitching, I agree because we discussed it. I wrote a column about it this
You
week.
convinced me. Yeah, you convinced me. Right.
I think that my sense is they see it as a place to get a pitcher. I know you mentioned Imai. I get a stronger feeling they want to kind of like plug and play a pitcher. Like if it's somebody from Japan, it might be somebody who's coming back from Japan, like Cody Ponce or Anthony K. Like one. And by the way, I don't want to aggregate this dude. I haven't heard they're tied, but somebody you could imagine beginning, not costing a ton, beginning the season in the rotation, and if everything went perfect, would be able to flow into the bullpen as the year went on. I don't think that's their need. I think believing that your starting pitching is all going to go perfect, that the four healthy guys now, the Schlittler, Warren, Fried, Hill, are going to stay healthy through spring training in the beginning of the season. Cole and Rodon are just going to show up on May 1st. It's going to go perfect. The young guys in the minor leagues, like Elmer Cruz Rodriguez and Carlos Lagrange, are going to be like Schlittler last year and just take off and be ready on the day you think they're going to be ready. And Clark Schmidt's going to be sitting there as their July 31st trade on August 1st, ready to come back from Tommy John surgery. And this all is just going to go like this and be fine. I think that's a mistake for a top tier team. I think you got to go out and get a starter. And if you ever have an uncomfortable situation as the season's going along, figure it out. But I would go get a real starting pitcher as part of this offseason and not getting a situation where you're looking left and right and dealing with whoever the Alan Winans is of the minute. John, as a way to finish this, you mentioned the bullpen. The bullpen is going to the bullpen's a little bit at this time of year like it is at the July 31st trade deadline. Everyone can convince themselves they need one or two. I'm with you. The Yankees need no fewer than two. It would be great if one of them was a power lefty to kind of complement the finesse lefty of Tim Hill. Do you assume that the way things went, I have questions for you again, as somebody who reads the market well. I sense Devin Williams is done with the Yankees. Uh, do you? And do you think there's any chance that a plan B, that if Cody Bellinger's suddenly a Met or a Philly or a Dodger, could plan B be at all? Well, let's sign Edwin Diaz and like be great at the end. Then you have Bednar and Diaz for the last 6 outs. And with Bednar ready to be a free agent after 2026, you have your answer for a while back there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not ruling much out in free agency. Anything can happen. I'm kind of with you on Williams. I think he got more comfortable as things went, but he can get a closing role elsewhere. We saw that the Dodgers, via the Athletic, are interested once again. They were last winter. If you've got a choice of the Dodgers or anyone else, no knock on the Yankees, you got a good chance of picking the Dodgers. He didn't have a choice last time. Word was he would have liked to have gone to the Dodgers. The Yankees probably weren't number one on his list due to the beard situation. They rectified that for him. He still didn't seem too comfortable until the last several weeks of the season, so I can see that. I mean, I'm not going to advocate against anybody getting Edwin Diaz, any big market team. He was the best closer in baseball last year. And Chapman was pretty good too. They're obviously not getting Chapman. He's on the Red Sox and doesn't really love the Yankees anyway. I think Diaz, would be great. Certainly with Bednar, I think that's probably not a great chance of happening. I think they like what Bednar did. There are a ton of guys out there who closed in the past and have been good closers, whether it be Suarez or Keller or Kenley Jansen. But the I know people are knocking this free agent list. I think overall it's decent. Obviously, there's no Otani, there's no Soto, but I think overall it's decent. But it's great in the relief pitching, and they should be able to bulk up that relief core, which I think would be imperative. And they obviously need a left-hander. I mean, you can't. Tim L did well. He was good. He's a good pitcher. It's a good bargain at $3 million. They need a left-hander. I don't think there's any question about that.
Yeah. John, you mentioned the name that I would use to finish this block, which is Chapman and also maybe Zach Britton. I think the Yankees didn't like the experience of having top of the market closer money guys on the roster. And they always feel they'll find their Clay Holmes, Luke Weaver kind of guy there. So I suspect they'll use their money in another way. Of course, it's all TBD. What we know right now is joining us next on the show is our friend, our partner at MLB Network, plus Fox and Sports Illustrated, Tom Verducci. He joins us next on the show. John and I are so thrilled to be joined by our friend, our colleague at MLB Network. He's also at Fox Sports, a longtime Sports Illustrated writer. And Tom's up for the Lifetime Achievement Award for baseball writer this offseason. He's one of the 3 people on the ballot. He should be the Hall of Famer from this group. It should have happened a long time ago because he's one of the best among us. Tom, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Tom, I do think one of the highlights of the World Series is I think you've taken the baton pass from Roger Angel, and your wrap up of the World Series is a must read. At the end, you could kind of like relive it all. And so I almost want to ask a broad question. We're a few weeks beyond what was a thrilling World Series and a memorable World Series on a bunch of different levels. The Dodgers winning 2 stunning games to finish this when it felt like the Blue Jays outplayed them in every way for about 7 games. With some reflection time now, what sticks out to you about this?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for that. Roger Angel, there's no higher compliment in my book, the master of baseball writing, just writing in general. What stands out to me is I have a hard time in my head saying this was the best World Series ever because I think I just need to let it sit for a while. But Joel, I can definitely tell you it's in the conversation. I mean, it's hard for me to top 2016 because of the history the Cubs and at that time the Indians brought into that game. And of course, that 17-minute pregnant pause of a rain delay, a tie game, 9th inning, Game 7 World Series. It was just so dramatic. But this was different in a way that I think it captured a lot of casual fans. Like the ratings were really good for this World Series. And you thought, what, a Canadian team, the Dodgers, been there, done that, back again. But I think the games were so compelling. And this is what stands out to me. As far as a World Series that went back and forth, where you changed your mind almost like on an hourly basis, who was going to win the World Series, especially in Game 7, it may be the best that I've ever seen because it was dramatic on almost an inning by inning basis. I can't remember a series where there's so many, great defensive plays, base running plays. I love the fact that the Blue Jays put the ball in play so much, it made the pace of the game so good. So, yeah, in terms of drama and the way the game was played, I think this has got to be one of the best, at least that I've seen.
You mentioned all the great plays, all the excitement at the end, particularly Game 7. What's 1 or 2 that really stand out for you? I mean, there are some obvious ones in my mind, but I'd like to hear your perspective on really. I mean, there were 3 or 4 plays that really would have won it for Toronto, it felt like. But what stands out for you and why?
Yeah, I agree. For me, the number 1 is the Rojas home run. Miguel Rojas is batting, and everybody's kind of paying attention to the guy on deck, Shohei Ohtani. And you're thinking, at least I was, there's no way that Jeff Hoffman can walk Miguel Rojas. You just have to groove a pitch down the middle of the plate. Now, I would never groove a slider on a 3-2 to Miguel Rojas. That has to be a fastball. Not expecting home run there at all. a little reminiscent of the Rajai Davis home run, right, against Aroldis Chapman. Not the kind of guy you're thinking home run. Base hit, maybe, double, okay. That was just flat out stunning. And I hated the 3-2 slider from Hoffman. The crowd just, you guys were there. You know that they were on the verge of winning the World Series there and just have it taken away. I thought after the home run, the Dodgers were going to win that game. It was just a feeling that I had that this team was not going to be denied getting it to extra innings. And then, of course, the Pages catch in center field. I mean, guys, I'm next to the dugout there when the bases are loaded, one out. Pius is sitting next to me with his hoodie on. He's as engaged in the game as I am at that point. And Danny Lehman, the bench coach, comes running down and basically says, "Get your butt in the game." And it's like, "Where's my glove? Take the hoodie off. Where's my hat?" I mean, it's like to pull the guy out of the stands. And of course, baseball, the way it is, the ball actually finds him. They put him in, obviously, because he had the better arm than Tommy Edman, protecting the sacrifice fly situation. But the next batter hits that fly ball. I didn't think Kike Hernandez was going to catch it. I mean, if he did, that was twice the Willie Mays catch going over his head, running back face first toward the wall. I really was paying attention to Kike and didn't see in real time Pages flying in there until the very end. I could not believe it. And then seeing the replay, he was actually playing shallow center field. He ran 121 feet and then jumped in the air over his left fielder. It's just an amazing play. Listen, Willie Mays is Willie Mays. The catch is historic in 54. I actually think, given the circumstances, because that was game one, that catch in 54, I think it's the greatest catch in World Series history. It's certainly the best that I've seen with everything on the line. He saved the World Series. He doesn't catch that ball. Ernie Clement is a World Series legend. He's the MVP, and the Blue Jays have their first World Championship in 32 years. History-changing catch. I was blown away by that.
Tom, it does stand out to me. You're mentioning Pages off the bench, Miguel Rojas. It's the way you began your story. I'm trying to remember. I think you mentioned, I don't think there was a period he hadn't started in 26 days. He didn't have a hit for like 31. To me, he's like the modern Luis Soho. He could just like do nothing for a month and field everything and put the bat on the ball. And Soho had a winning hit, obviously, in the World Series also. And we're talking about small players on this behemoth, Andy Pages and Miguel Rojas. So why don't I ask you the killer question that got asked it's been really asked for 2 years, but especially this year. Are the Dodgers ruining baseball? Because they're doing that, and they got the guy, as you mentioned, the guy on deck, which everyone had their eye on, and Yamamoto, who did Randy Johnson-esque stuff in this World Series. And I'm assuming Sasaki will be great at some point also. And who knows who they get this offseason from the Kyle Tucker, Edwin Diaz line. Take it where you want, Tom. Are they ruining baseball?
No, I think it's great for the game. I think they're a model for everybody else in baseball. Of course, they have more resources than everybody else. I get it. Who else has two charter planes during the course of the season, right? The players have their own plane, staff and coaches and analysts and whatnot on another. I don't think anybody else does that. The way they draft and develop throughout the minor leagues, that's a model. It's not just they have money to spend. Yeah, that's a huge advantage. I get it. But you bring up a good point. I love the Soho comparison as well. Let's face it, when you're playing a baseball game, you can't call timeout and have your best hitter go up there and take the at-bat. And that was Rojas hitting the 9-hole, right? I love the fact that given all their resources, it comes down to after game 5, Dodgers are one game away from losing the World Series. And Dave Roberts tells Miguel Rojas, "You're playing game 6." Now, there was no reason to play him. He hadn't had a base hit literally in a month. But he said, "This guy means so much to the team. He's our glue guy. He's been a great teammate all year. I love the energy that he brings. I'm not losing the World Series without at least giving him a chance to play." Now, there was nobody in the analytics department who told Dave Roberts, "Hey, this guy's got great numbers against this pitcher. He needs to play." No, it was just a gut feeling by Dave Roberts. And I love the fact that based on what Miggy Rojas gave them all year long, he put him in the lineup. Not expecting a home run, of course. But I love those kind of stories. And Pages as well, the guy who was, 4 for 50 or something in the postseason. I mean, an automatic out, and he gives us an all-time moment. So the Dodgers do cover a lot of mistakes, if you will, and especially with injuries, with depth. And I get that. But I think you look at this team, the way they run things, the way they cover themselves in the minor league system that they have, and they've done a great job. If you look at their drafts, especially with pitchers, finding guys who are available later in the round, and just their player development machine, makes them better than everybody else thinks they are. I think it's great for the game. I think it is a modern dynasty. I love the fact that this team stayed hungry and wanted to repeat, and that was something that you guys saw with the New York Yankees. They were never satisfied. They were always like trying to get there first, and I get the sense that that's what the Dodgers felt this year.
Yeah, I'm with you. They're not ruining baseball. It's a legit dynasty. I'm going to put you on the spot here because I loved your story about Pages and the hoodie on the bench. You've got a unique perspective, I guess, along with Ken Rosenthal, so it's not 100% unique. Tell us what that's like. I mean, we're in the at the games, but we're just watching. You're actually on the bench. What is that like? What are some of the unusual things, if you can think of them? Again, I'm putting you on the spot here that you've seen. Do people are they interacting with you because you're the only non-employee that's allowed there on the bench with the team?
Yeah, actually, it's pretty cool. There's a lot of times, obviously, people that I know, players, coaches, whoever that's down there. I can have a conversation with them. It's usually not long, but maybe ask a question or just something that happened in the course of the game. Like you would turn to a buddy and say, "Hey, what about that play?" It's not, it doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. The perspective is really cool. I'll give you one example. Watching Yamamoto in between innings. I don't know any other starting pitcher who like never goes back into the clubhouse. He is always on the bench. And not only just on the bench, he's always first sitting with Mark Pryor and the translator, his translator, Yoshihiro Sabota translates, and they go over the next three hitters coming up the next inning. He's got this book that he's got with notations in, Yamamoto does, and he's also writing in that book, putting new entries in there, and he's referring to that book every single inning. He is so locked in, and then he'll get up and he'll pantomime his delivery in the dugout. It's a unique, I think it's one of the most efficient deliveries in baseball. He is so engaged. Like I said, he never goes back into the clubhouse. Unlike Ohtani, of course, we waited like what 3 or 4 minutes for him to come back to the mound there in Game 7. But watching guys' habits, like in between at bats, who's talking to who. Otani's really good as a leadoff hitter, coming back and telling guys what he saw from the pitcher in his first at bat of a game. Mookie Betts, same thing. I love to see the interaction among the players in the dugout. It's really cool. It does. I wouldn't say it's not rah-rah like a college team, but it's more like guys studying their iPads, sharing information, that type of stuff.
Tom, they as being with them in so many Octobers, especially the last two where they went the whole way. I agree with you and John. I don't think they're ruining baseball. I agree with you. I think they're setting a path for what to do, including what you're just talking about, which is how they behave on the bench. Yamamoto, and I've mentioned this a bunch in different forums. Watching Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman come out every game day, like 4 to 5 hours before a game, and take extra work. I mean, these are two guys going to Cooperstown, and they're going there mainly because of the other side of the ball, especially Freddie. And to just see these great players in their 30s in a workload era out there doing extra work, to me, it's inspiring. And I also made that analogy, which is, the thing with the Jeter Yankees was last year's championship never mattered after the parade. And these guys seem like they have the same mindset. I wonder, as somebody who's kind of obviously around them, what you think about it all.
I think that's a great call. And I think you watch Mookie Betts and the way he turned himself from a Gold Glove right fielder into probably a Gold Glove shortstop, but at least an elite defender at shortstop. It's amazing. And it's because of hard work. He's out there literally every day. I mean, even on the off days in the World Series, he's out there going through his progressions at shortstop. It's really impressive. Freddie, the best story I get from Freddie, when he first got to the Dodgers, everybody had their own iPad and they'd come back and they would just get lost in their own iPad. And Freddie said, we have to have like a limit on iPads. Let's just have like 4 or 5 of them and let's talk among ourselves rather than just burying our heads in a singular iPad. Great team player. Yeah, I think the character of the team really stands out to me. It does take the veterans, I think, as leaders of the team. And the Yankees, as you mentioned, had that. So I don't think they're ruining baseball. I think it's great for the game to have somebody that other teams can shoot for. And what's interesting too, guys, is the way I don't know that you could say they turned it on in October, but they certainly were the healthiest in October, right? And that I think was by design. It was a few years ago, if you remember. We were talking about greatest team of all time. They ran up, I think, 111 wins, right? They tried to max out their number of wins, get home field advantage throughout. Well, the Padres knocked them out, like in the first round. That's what they got for 111 wins. It doesn't get you much in the postseason. And I think they realized there it's all about getting to October healthy. And remember, they had to go through the wild card route. No big deal. They played Cincinnati, got rid of them quickly. It was actually good for them, I thought. But they realize now you don't have to win 100 games plus. And I think you look at baseball now, we've gone 2 straight years without anybody winning 100 games. And I think that the message now is workload management, especially with pitching. And the way they got their pitching to October healthy and on point, that was not a mistake. It was not a happenstance. This is the way they built it out during the course of the season. And again, they're a model for baseball that way.
I'm with you guys on Mookie and Freddie. They're outstanding. There's another guy in the Dodgers who's pretty good who we really haven't dived into yet, and Shohei Ohtani. Of course, I'm talking about. You referred to him earlier. Uh, what do you think? Can anybody duplicate what Shohei Ohtani is doing? I know we've had people try. No one's even come anywhere close.
Shohei's one of a kind. I know when he first came over here, people were saying this is going to open the door for other people to be two-way players. The Rays drafted a pitcher, outfielder who they thought was going to be that. No, it's just way too hard. I'm amazed with you guys. I actually thought after the 18 inning game that Dave Roberts was just going to use him as the pitcher and not as the DH. I mean, to me, he looked spent. He was on base 9 times in a 6.5 hour game, and he's the starting pitcher the next day. And I remember talking to Dave Roberts, and Shohei hadn't yet shown up. I said, is Shohei going to DH as well? And he said, yeah, like, why wouldn't he? I don't even have to check with him. I know this is what he does and who he is. It's amazing. Now, I did think it finally caught up with him. I really thought his stuff was down a tick in that game. It was down a tick in game 7, pitching on short rest. The fact that he does it is just amazing to me. Just the physical nature of what he does, just pitching alone and the recovery aspect of it is so hard. And then he's on base all the time. And it's we're not going to see anything like this again. It's funny. There was one day, I think it was during game or after game 5 when it looked to me like he was spent. And I asked Dave Roberts, how can he possibly keep doing this? Because Babe Ruth didn't even do it for 2 full years. And he basically said, I'm out. It's too hard physically to do. And Dave Roberts said he can do this for as long as he wants. I thought he was going to say like another year or two. But he said this is who he is. Shohei is defined by being a two-way player. So for the people who say, hey, if he just gives up pitching, he'd be a great hitter or vice versa, ain't happening. This is who he wants to be, the best player on the planet. He is. I think he's the best player who ever played the game. And I think he wants to keep doing this. Well, I know he wants to do it until he's 40, 41. I don't know if he can last that long, but that's his intention. And he's one of those guys. Don't doubt him. Do not doubt Shohei Ohtani.
I can't believe anybody's still talking about, like, when is he giving this up? I mean, he's about to win a 4th unanimous MVP. Like, what else would everybody like from the guy? Tom, 2 off seasons ago was the Ohtani free agency. Last was Juan Soto, that chase. What do you think defines this offseason? What's Tom Verducci keeping an eye on?
I think it's the number where Kyle Tucker goes. I think it starts with a 4. I think he's a $40 billion a year player, and I think the total contract goes over 400. He's the best hitter on the market. I know he didn't have a great year between the injury with the Cubs in the second half, but the body of work is really good. He's a two-way player, and it's just hard to find people like that. I happen to think he's a great fit for Dodgers. I mean, remember, guys, in the 7th game of the World Series, the outfield the Dodgers ran out there was Kike Hernandez, Tommy Edman, and Teoscar Hernandez. I mean, we're talking about the greatest team, they're ruining baseball and all this stuff. That's not an all-world outfield. I mean, they won the game, they won the World Series, don't get me wrong, but it's not like they can't use Kyle Tucker. He's exactly what they need. In fact, the Dodgers were telling me they have so much coming off the payroll, they can actually add him at $40 million a year and not be adding to the payroll. It's amazing the way they just turn like this. But I'm looking at that, and on the trade market, I think it's fascinating to think of how many top starting pitchers may be out there. And I say may because having names out there and having deals completed is entirely different. Starting with Tarek Skubal, I think they have at least to explore the idea of trading him, see what they can get. I don't think they have intentions of dealing him. Why would you, right? You might as well ride it out. You have a chance to win a pennant in Detroit. I don't think there's a deal that can satisfy Detroit that can also keep them in contention for a pennant. So you'll hear a lot about that. I don't think he'll be traded. But whether it's Alcantara, a guy I thought the Mets should have traded for at the deadline, I just thought he was just turning a corner, and that would have been a great fit, not just for this year, but going forward. Now the Marlins look like they're not that far away. So I don't know if he gets traded. Freddie Peralta in Milwaukee, and Mackenzie Gore in Washington. Who knows where they're going with their new leadership there? So a lot of churn and talk, I think, about the starting pitching trade market. It's almost even more interesting than the free agent market.
Tom, as just a way to wrap it up, the point you make about the Dodgers is a fascinating one, which is um, their outfield was an area of like weakness. They were using starting pitchers to close, and Tarek Skubal's out there. Do I think it will happen? That I think they're the one team that could actually trade for Skubal because they have so much starting pitching depth in the minor leagues. Plus, you could throw like Glasnow, say, into the trade now and say like to Detroit, you got Glasnow and Sheehan plus this other stuff. So you got like two guys who go right into your rotation. I'm with you. I wouldn't trade Tarek Skubal if I were Detroit. I'd just ride it out. But like the amazing thing about the Dodgers is they could do Tucker, they could do Diaz, they could trade for Skubal. I mean, what are we going to be talking about then if they do that? Because I do think with everything being said about all these other teams, they remain the team to watch in the offseason because their ambitions are the largest.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, we got all kind of hot and bothered when they get people like Tanner Scott and Kirby Yates. You're talking about Kyle Tucker and Tarek Skubal. But I mean, hey, listen, you guys lived through this where the Yankees were that team, right? Where you could not rule anything out. Mike Mussina's on the market. They don't need him. Oh, wait a second. The Yankees just signed Mike Mussina, trading for David Wells. I mean, Jose Contreras, on and on and on. It was like, if there's a big fish out there, the Yankees got their line in the water. And that's who the Dodgers are right now. It doesn't mean they're going to get everybody, but I'm with you. I do not rule them out. They're so smart. And I just think that it's a place people want to play. And the Yankees had that going for them as well, right? If you wanted to win a ring back then, you jumped on the train with the Yankees. Now it's the Dodgers.
Yep. Tom, we can't thank you enough. It was a great World Series. We're now entering an interesting offseason. Everyone should follow Tom at Sports Illustrated and MLB Network to continue to get his insights this offseason. And everyone should root for the most deserving guy on the ballot for the Lifetime Achievement for the Writers Wing of the Hall of Fame. Tom, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Hey, my pleasure, guys. Really enjoyed it.
John and I, of course, thank Tom Verducci for joining us on the show. John, hit or error?
I'm going to give a hit. I hear a lot of criticism about the free agent starting pitching market, which I think has some depth. It's not terrible, but I'm giving a hit for a great trade market, particularly if Skubal is out there. I've heard the answers were ran the gamut from all these different executives, from he's going to get traded to no chance he's not going to get traded. Most of the people thought that, or the rival GMs felt that they will put his name out there and gauge what the interest is and what they can get for him, but they probably won't trade him. But that's the big number one guy that creates interest for all of baseball is Tarek Skubal, the best pitcher, certainly at least in the American League, probably in Major League Baseball, who should get a Cy Young win, another one tonight. I think that's great for baseball. There's a long list of guys who could be traded, very good starting pitchers, Alcantara, Cabrera, Lopez, Ryan, Gore, Gray, Peralta. I'm not saying any of them is particularly likely, some more likely than others, but you got 7 or 8 very good starters who could be out there on the market, and that makes for an interesting offseason.
John, I'll flow from you. I'll give an error for last offseason to David Stearns and the need for a hit this offseason, and it probably begins right there. He needs better starting pitching. I know lots of things go into the formula that is run prevention. It begins with a guy having a baseball in his hand and throwing it well, and the Mets just didn't have enough healthy, talented starting pitching last year. And so if that means internally reviving Senga and Minaya to better forms of themselves that we've seen in the past, that's got to be part of this since he did fire the pitching coach and he's going a different way there. Just got to be much better out on the market. So I'm not sure that it's a hit or an error as much as he had one offseason that was a hit, one offseason so far is an error. And if the Mets are going to trend in the direction they want to, which is to be serial winners under this administration, which I think we thought they were headed towards 12 months ago, with Cohn at the top, Stearns as the head of baseball operations, and Carlos Mendoza as the manager, then the Mets badly need the David Stearns to be the MVP of this offseason. John, the MVP of our show is always Tommy Hogan, our great producer. You and I are far flung these last few weeks, including right now in Vegas. And Tommy always jumps in at a moment's notice to make everything possible. Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts, please rate and review us. Go to the New York Post YouTube page to give us a view. Please subscribe to that. It always helps the show if you like the show. And obviously, since we're doing this from Vegas, the hot stove is often going. Please stick with us on the show with Joel Sherman and Jon Heyman.